Yeah, dude, I mean, that's the first I've heard of that concept, but it makes sense. So where do you see, like, what is the biggest fundamental problem that you see in law enforcement as far as our training goes? I mean, is there something that stands out to you that you think we could definitely do better on? I mean, obviously you come from the tactical world, so clearly that's a problem.
Yeah. And I, just so everybody's aware, when I talk about making changes in law enforcement, it's literally like that 0.01% of high stress, high threat critical incidents. I am focused on community safety. That is my mission. That is what I tell my donors. I am trying to make their community safer, and I'm doing it by giving the people that are protecting them more training in the things that they don't have training in, right? Cops do great at 99.9% of their job. But when they're asked to respond to something where their stress level exceeds their abilities, they're making mistakes. And you guys don't train under stress. Maybe some SWAT teams do.
Very little, yeah.
Maybe some SWAT teams, but certainly no patrol officers.
Yeah, very little.
You know, I can watch a news report on a critical incident from, the officer's perspective or security cameras, and I can see where the training failed them. I can see where they didn't have training because I would have responded in a different way. And to me, that's not the officer's problem, right? They shouldn't be in trouble because they failed, right? But it doesn't mean we can't give them better training to help them be successful. And I think, to me, that's where the focus needs to be. It needs to be on fundamental skills to work in a high stress environment. Like it's almost insulting to me that I spent nearly 20 years trying to perfect hostage rescue techniques, and someone thinks that I can give a cop 40 hours of training and expect them to be able to do my job. Because that's what they're doing.
For 30 years, yeah.
They're doing a Navy SEAL hostage rescue, impromptu, like with no warning, because they just happen to be the closest person to the scenario. Yeah. And in most cases, they don't have any experience. So we're hoping that they do the right thing. We're not teaching them to do the right thing.
Go ahead. I'm just clearing my throat. Sorry.
No, and maybe you get lucky like Nashville and you had a couple prior military guys that were already on scene, right? Or more than likely you end up with an Uvalde where it's paralysis by analysis. Nobody wants to make a decision and nobody does.
Yeah.
And that is the standard that most patrol level officers are trained to in this country. At best, maybe a 40-hour program that was developed by police who've never been in an active shooter situation.
Yeah, that's really true, because the general public expects all of this stuff. Cops that are in law enforcement or law enforcement community hope that they can do that. Yep. And the reality is that you can't. Yeah. And then the department on top says, we're going to give you 40 hours of training. That covers report writing, de-escalation, shooting.
And they only do it just because they're mandated to. So to check the box.
It's to cover the ass of the department so they don't get sued, right? Hey, I don't know what happened. They had training. I don't know why they didn't go in. Yeah,
because when something goes wrong, they can go back and say, well, we provided this training. Yeah. And that's what we're required to by the state. And they did. So they've done their job.
So you come in and you provide training. What is something that, of all the training that you've put in, what is something that you've noticed when you come in, you do the audit, and you're looking for deficiencies? Like, is there a commonality of what you're noticing?
Yeah, the commonality at that level is there's no fundamental baseline. There is no two training programs or curriculums that are the same. I don't even come in with a curriculum. I don't want to, because it takes time away from fundamentals, right? So I will take your curriculum, I'll make it better. Like, a lot of times it's antiquated. Like they're using tactics from 10 years ago, and we just try to bring them up to speed. But it's these people have never learned how to enter a room, which is really the basic part of CQB is, okay, I hear gunfire. I need to go in that door. How do I do it safely and fast, right? Because speed and violence of action, like, we have to get in that room as fast as possible because we're trying to save lives. They don't know about distance and angles and how to put themselves in good positions, how to work with another person. All these things that should be fundamental so that if you respond and then the next time over respond to the same critical incident, you guys can mesh and work safely together.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
No, you're right. It doesn't.
It's interesting because both Kyle and I have been through EMT school, and that is a national registry. It is exactly the same standard across the entire United States. Every training is exactly the same. You go from one state it is all exactly the same. Yeah. You leave one, you can go across the country, and it's exactly the same. Law enforcement, the academies from police department to police department is totally different.
Yeah, from one county over is completely different. Going back to the stress and being involved in critical incidents, well, I fully agree with you. And my first shooting I was involved in back in 2015, I think I was probably 27, 28 maybe. Yep. And after that incident, which resulted in a, it was like 6.5 minute gunfight, which is a long time. Like when you're in a fucking gun battle with somebody, hoping to make it out alive. I reflected after that because there was a part of me when that first kicked off where I went into panic mode and I'm on video, right? And I'm like running in a circle and I have no fucking clue why I ran in a circle because my brain just took over, right? There were other people on scene that maybe did things where you might look at it and go, okay, this guy didn't perform. And I think the biggest issue, and when I reflected on this, is like when you become a cop, you seriously do think that like, oh, I can show up to that call and fucking rise to the occasion and get in a gunfight and fucking, because I'm a cop. And I mean, I'm so big on telling guys like, we teach these classes with Savage, like, no, you're not that guy. Like you're not just going to show up to something like that, get super stressed out, get all these adrenaline dumps, like cortisol dumps in your body. And you're just going to make all these crazy critical decisions on the fly. That shit doesn't happen. So I reflected after that. Luckily I was able to, come out of that panic mode and got myself to get angry and enough to get the job done with the help of my partners. But man, after that, I was like, holy fuck, this is real. And the training that we were getting to be able to get yourself through a situation like that, like I can't think of a time that I was ever trained or it had ever been talked about managing stress. But the crazy thing is like at a drop of a hat as a cop, dude, you may be getting dispatched to that call. And now you're expected to fucking handle that call, the Uvalde call, right? Yeah. It just fucking blows my mind that, and I still don't get it because it still doesn't seem like we invest a whole lot of time into it, is managing stress and how your brain actually operates. Yep. I don't think there's 1 hour spent in the academy learning that shit before you even get to the streets.
Well, how many times did you train for a situation similar to the one you were in before you were in that situation?
Dude, honest to God, I had been a cop for probably 10 years at that point. A handful. Maybe a handful.
Did you ever feel that stress?
No, fuck no. Not even close.
So that's what we do really well, specifically at Development Group, is we are able to recreate the stress of war in training. And I tell people the first time you are stressed out to that point where you make those kinds of mistakes shouldn't be on a real target. No, I can look at the AAR from Uvalde and I would say 75 to 80% of the things that they had go wrong could have been fixed on a training evolution. One training day. Like we could have recreated a lot of that stuff and fixed the problems before they happened in a real world situation. And that just comes with getting out of your comfort zone in training, right? Yeah. It's really hard for law enforcement to train themselves on critical incident response because there's so few critical incidents that happen throughout a career. And, that's why I recommend bringing in people like me, obviously not just nonprofit, but there's for-profit companies that do this. If you can afford that, because these are people who did it for 20 years, sustained combat every night, going out and being in active shooter situations or barricaded shooter, or, generally just people wanting to kill you just because you're, who you are. Yeah. So it's this vast wealth of knowledge of guys who, now that the wars are over for the most part, and we're not being utilized, are getting out and have this amazing abundance of knowledge and mindset on handling stress and leadership development and training and how to critique and after action, and just want to give that knowledge to somebody else. Right. And to me, law enforcement should be knocking down their door trying to get those guys in.
Agreed, totally.
I agree. Imagine if that was the standard across the nation for cops. Imagine the amount of cops that would less likely be killed. Probably citizens that are, or cops that are involved in shootings where there probably shouldn't have been, right? I mean, think of the, I don't even know how to fucking word this, but those types of situations would happen far less, and we would have so much less controversy with cops, right? And over these controversial shootings, if they were properly trained to be able to show up and properly manage a situation like that.
Probably manage, but just how to handle stress.
Manage stress. If you want to talk
about the lowest common denominator, is giving someone the fundamental ability to be able to handle stressful situations and still work through it. I use skydiving as an example. If you've jumped out of a plane before.
No.
Well, anybody that has, right? The first jump you do, all you see is toilet paper tubes at the ground. And you're waiting for the ground to come up and get you.
Yeah.
By the 10th jump, it's like, all right, I see trees. I see there's other skydivers. And then 100 jumps, you see everything. And you're out there and you're flipping and doing all this crazy stuff. And then the more you do, the more comfortable you get being in a situation in which you could die. It's the same thing with tactics and CQB, man. You have to work in that environment to be better handling the stress that environment puts on you. And if you don't train for it, there's no way it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Is there a way or something you could offer, just a short something that cops could do right now in their patrol car or their patrol teams, just a something about managing stress? Like, how would you, with the exception of bringing in a team to help and seek actual training, is there something that you could provide?
So here's the thing I tell everybody: whenever we go to a range, I know who practices and who doesn't practice. I can look at people's form, how they stand, right? I'm a better shot if I come up and I have this really, equidistant stance and my arms are out, but you're never going to do that in a tactical environment, right? And we're training in law enforcement not to take range shots. We're training in case we actually have to utilize our weapons. So there's ways officers can better skills when it comes to firearms manipulation, transitioning, things that could happen that you shouldn't have to worry about on target, that you can work through without having any tactical training whatsoever. And you can dry fire at home, and I'll caveat, hey, dry fire, clear and safe your weapon before you do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, how easy is it to watch a YouTube video? And there's plenty of guys that are putting stuff out that's pretty good. If you need help finding the right ones, let me know, where you just work on transitioning from pistol to rifle without a weapon, just working out the kinks in your gear.